Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce our panelists for our discussion on volunteerism this morning, or this afternoon, I guess it is now. First up is Donna Pulda, who is Vice President of Volunteer Services for the United Way. Jessica Cecere, who is CEO of Nonprofits First. Lindy Harvey, Executive Director, Spirit of Giving Network. Juanita Goode, CROS Ministries. Jeanne Heavilin, Literacy Coalition, and Colleen Raniere, Volunteer Director, American Red Cross. We asked these ladies particularly to join us in discussion this morning because they're all long-term leaders of nonprofit organizations and very experienced in the recruitment and management of volunteers. Also with us are Joni Cherbo and Christine Cataggio, who you've already met, Encore board members. So we have a lot of questions for our panel and only an hour. So if people have a question for the panel, please put it in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the meeting. So I want to thank our panel members again for participating. Our goal this morning and Encore's goal is to find ways to increase volunteerism in Palm Beach County and to help people find the volunteer opportunity that is right for them. So the first couple of questions I'm going to ask is for all of the panelists. And then I have other questions that you may or may not have an interest in responding to. So the first two questions are, please tell us a bit about your organization, your area of responsibility, and recognizing that volunteer recruitment and development has been hindered by the pandemic. We all know that. For your organization, what has been successful and not successful in attracting volunteers to your particular organization? And so I see Juanita first in line here. Let's begin with you. You're muted. Mm-hmm. Everybody needs.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to be conscientious with Zoom to be unmuted so we don't have all this background noise. But again, good morning. It's great to be with all of you this afternoon. And as she said, I'm Juanita Goode. I'm with CROS Ministries, which is an organization serving the hungry in Palm Beach and Martin County through community collaborations. So we're working with schools, businesses, civic groups, congregations in order to carry out, our mission. And we have 4 main programs. We have food pantries throughout the county and one in Martin County. So we have 8 altogether, one of them being a mobile food pantry that goes to different places in the middle part of the county that have been identified as food deserts. Then we also have our Caring Kitchen, which is a hot meal program in Delray Beach, serving meals throughout the week, Monday through Friday. And we have partners who serve a meal on Saturday as well. And one of the newest things that we are really working to branch out is delivering meals to those who are homebound. So if you know of seniors who need help with food in the 33444 area, please let me know. Then we also have our gleaning program, which is, what is the picture behind me, is one of the fields that we go and glean produce that has been left behind because it's not grade A that the restaurants and the supermarkets want. But of course, it's still good. As my coworker explains, it's sort of like what you might grow in your backyard. It might come up with a spot, be crooked, but it's still good and nutritious. Then we also have a summer camp that we do each year for families with low incomes, so their children can have a safe place during the summer. It's 10 weeks, 9 weeks, Monday through Friday from about 7 to 5. So it's a full day and really makes it affordable for the families because we just charge $25 a week for their children. Then, all of our programs are run by volunteers. That's the only way that we're able to do this. We have about 15 full-time staff and another 5 or 6 that are part-time. So serving, all the people through meals and food pantries, it only happens with our volunteers. So I really appreciate, Rosemary having me on and being able to share. So during the pandemic, it has definitely been more difficult. I'm very grateful to my coworkers who very quickly adjusted to our situation to provide, especially at our food pantries, a safe way for us to be able to still distribute food to those in need. And one of the things was reducing the number of volunteers. And so we have a number of our regular volunteers who are older and they're staying home at this time. And then at our hot meal program, that's a little bit more easier because we're often serving outside, once in the library parking lot in Delray Beach. And then we've been able to transition at the church where we serve the meals outside as well. And then we added recently delivery, having people drive through and pick up a meal, because we are at the site where we prepare the meals. Quezon United Methodist Church has very generously allowed us to use their kitchen. And so on Thursdays, we're doing the drive-through meals. And also the city of Delray Beach, they had police officers that were in training, and they very graciously at this beginning, those first few months, offered them to be able to go and deliver the meals for our homebound, because, in the very beginning, nobody wanted to get out. But of course, our seniors, they definitely needed the help in the continuing meals coming. So we're very grateful for that partnership, with the city of Delray Beach and the police. And we've recently gone back to our regular volunteers delivering, but we are, through wonderful grants from United Way, thank you, Donna, we have been able to expand our delivery of meals to the homebound. And so we are working to add on some new individuals, as I mentioned. And our funding, comes from lots of different places, but the new thing that we started as part of the transition with our food pantries in the beginning, because we only wanted to have 2 or 3 volunteers at our pantry at a time, we then began packing the bags of food at our warehouse, because big open space and a lot easier to keep people socially distant. And in that way, we created sort of a new volunteer opportunity and used Sign Up Genius, which has worked out really well, and have recruited a lot of new volunteers, because people who are laid off, people who were now looking to reach out in the community. And so it's been really fantastic, and they're so grateful for those who are willing to still come out and help, because that is right now, it's supplying our food pantries and keeping us able to run and operate our food pantries. So that's been sort of the new thing. Sorry. Just ignore that. And so anyway, it's been difficult, but not so difficult for us, because we have been able to manage to adjust, but we are having difficulties recruiting long-term volunteers who can volunteer for like 3 to 6 months. And so we, trying to get our word out there everywhere we can on different websites, different programs, like United Way and others. And so I think that's enough for me.
Well, it's amazing that you're doing what you're doing in the middle of all this. Colleen, would you like to share your response to those questions?
Yes, sorry. Hi, my name is Colleen Raniere. I am a senior recruitment specialist with the South Florida region of the American Red Cross. The American Red Cross's mission is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of our volunteers and the generosity of our donors. We are truly a volunteer-led organization with over 90% of our workforce being volunteers. And we're also part of the largest humanitarian network in the world with our Red Cross societies around the world. Here in South Florida, we cover basically the bottom third of the state. So from Vero Beach all the way down to the Keys and over to the west coast of Florida. We serve over 8 million people in 13 counties, and we have 4 chapters within our region. So the Palm Beach and Treasure Coast chapter is one of the chapters that I cover, but many of us cover regionally, and so do our volunteers. So wherever there's a need, we're kind of moving people around to cover those needs. During the pandemic, quickly we realized that there were many things that we do service delivery wise that we would need to adjust to ensure the safety of our volunteers and the clients we serve. So our different lines of service, and we have several different lines of service that we cover. So I'll just backtrack a little bit. Service to armed forces, serving the military and their families, disaster response, international services, training services, and preparedness education is a big part of what we do, disaster preparedness education. So within all of those lines of service, there's an element of in-person service delivery and some elements of virtual opportunities and things that we could deliver virtually already. So we kind of had a mixture of both, but we quickly realized that we needed to adjust some of our service delivery, and we were able to do that and found that our volunteers were some of our volunteers were very responsive to that, and some of them kind of struggled with using the technology that we implemented to be able to deliver those services. So it's been kind of a mixture of having existing volunteers adjusting to that environment and having new volunteers coming in and not knowing anything different. So they were happy to have the opportunity to be able to, during COVID, give back to our organization and give back to their communities. What else can I tell? So, obviously everybody knows us as a disaster relief organization, but I mentioned we do many things. Serving the military goes to the heart of who we are as an organization and how we started. But every day in the United States, every 60 seconds, 20 people are served, utilize American Red Cross services. And those could be because of the impact of a disaster or because we're providing life-saving training through CPR and first aid and preparedness training, babysitting. In some areas we do CNA training and blood collection. Of course, we supply approximately 40% of the nation's blood supply. Here in Florida, we do not collect blood, the Red Cross, but we partner with the organizations that do, like One Blood. So we support their efforts. We've as a recruitment specialist, that's kind of the whole of my job, pretty much. I work on engagement and recognition, things like that too, but mostly I'm focused on recruitment. And what I have found successful in this environment is to make sure that I'm leveraging all the opportunities to share the message of our mission, whether it's putting postings out on online sites, utilizing organizations like Encore, of course, Volunteer Match, Just Serve, Volunteer Florida, some of the college websites. I've also reached out to some of the former partners that I had with the HOA communities, especially here in Palm Beach and Martin County and up the coast a bit. And a lot of them have offered us the opportunity to internally advertise our volunteer needs to their residents. They were looking for them for things to do. So that was, that's been really successful. We've also internally looked towards our volunteers, our board members. We have board committees that are specifically focused on mission and recruitment, mission capacity and recruitment, diversity and inclusion. So we look to internally as well to help share the needs, how the needs have changed, the opportunities now that may look a little bit different than they did before. And then we also provided support to those volunteers to train them on how to perform their role now in the virtual sphere. And it's been pretty successful. We saw we saw a steep increase in volunteerism early in the pandemic. And then, of course, during hurricane season, we had particular needs related to the potential for sheltering during the COVID environment. So we had to do a larger external recruitment because there were existing volunteers that would normally be willing to go to a congregate shelter that now, because of COVID, were not. And that was a very successful campaign. There were many volunteers that answered the call to respond in those areas that were impacted by the devastating storms that we all saw over the summer months. So it's been interesting. It's been a good learning experience. It's been in a lot of ways, it has helped our volunteers, in particular our older volunteers, to gain new skills and feel confident about using technology. So in that respect, it has been a good thing for them. There is a percentage that didn't feel comfortable moving forward with their position as it was, if it was going to be virtual. But we've got lots of opportunities and lots of needs. Again, service to armed forces is one area. Disaster response is now, we are delivering in some of the services that we deliver in a virtual sphere, and we need that. We need those volunteers, those frontline volunteers every day. So that's a big recruitment for us, because every day in our community, somebody experiences a home fire, and the Red Cross is always there to help that family.
Thank you, Colleen. It certainly sounds like a big job that you all are doing. It's amazing what people have been able to create and accomplish during this very difficult time. Jeanne, if you would go next, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon to all. Jeanne Heavilin, I'm with the Literacy Coalition of Palm Beach County. I've been with them almost 14 years. Our mission is to make sure every child and adult in the county can read fluently, and we do that through a number of programs and initiatives. Most of our volunteering is very specific, unlike some of the other panelists who have spoken. Ours is primarily volunteer tutoring of adults and elementary school children, first and second grade. Like everybody else, we've had to transition when the schools shut down in March. All the one-on-one tutoring that we provided was done. So we've been fairly successful in transitioning our programs to virtual tutoring. Fortunately, that's something that can be done pretty easily virtually. Recruiting volunteers has not been an issue for us, fortunately, because we are so specific in what we're doing. Anybody who recognizes the need for literacy, which is, I think, everybody, enjoys tutoring. And who doesn't like to read to a little kid? I mean, that's just all fun and games. So our challenge, I say, has not been in recruitment. It's been in transitioning our volunteers. We do a lot of training on technology, as others have indicated. We've probably lost about half our volunteers, majority of them retirees, just not comfortable with the technology. They're great on an iPhone with their grandchildren, but not so much with Zoom or Google Meet. The biggest challenge is keeping the volunteers we have who want to do in-person tutoring, keeping them engaged and interested, so when we can return to that, they'll still be available.
Thank you. As a big reader myself, I have been wondering how you tutor somebody in reading virtually. How does that actually work? Does the child and the tutor have the same book so that they follow along with the tutor?
Yeah, before last March, I asked the same question. Yeah, we use Zoom and Google Meet, which is what the school district uses. There are a number of great digital libraries online for children. So we're able to actually share a book on the computer screen that both the tutor and the child or adult can read together at the same time.
Oh, so
I
the
don't know what we
page,
would have done if this had happened 10 years ago and we didn't have this technology.
right,
We'd all be up a creek.
the tutor and the child have the same picture of the
Yes.
book on screen. Isn't that
Yeah.
great, huh?
It's incredible.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, who's next? How about Jessica?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I love hearing, and I get to work with nonprofits all the time, so I know the cool things that they've come up with, but it is pretty cool that technology has allowed us to still continue to provide the services that we need to provide in the community. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm Jessica Cecere. I'm the CEO of Nonprofits First. Nonprofits First is a nonprofit management support organization for all of our nonprofits in Palm Beach County and beyond. And frankly, we're able to transition pretty quickly because, again, we are very specific in what we offer to our nonprofit members and even to those folks that work in the nonprofit community. So almost every volunteer opportunity that we have at Nonprofits First we're able to do virtually, because they are things like judging and committees and working on accreditation panels and providing education and professional resources. It's as easy as being on Zoom, but everybody was not as comfortable with that back in March, but everybody, I think, has adjusted very well. One of the things that Nonprofits First did during the pandemic was launch a website called nonprofitsfirstcares.org. So if you're not familiar with that, you should check that out. It's in our newsletter that we send out pretty much every week or every other week. So, and many of you nonprofits that are with us today are on that website, and it's a place for nonprofit organizations to post all of their volunteer opportunities. So it's a place where you can post needs, volunteer opportunities, donor information. It's kind of a one-stop shop for that particular need. And I think the biggest challenge we've had with that is just letting people know it's out there. So that's the same problem everybody has anyway, but we try our best to post and provide as much resources as we can out in the community to let people know that that's a great place to go look for either a volunteer opportunity or for a nonprofit organization to post the fact that they need volunteers and that they have these opportunities available. So that's been a big part of what we've been launching for the last 6 months. Thanks to some of our funders, Great Charity Challenge, Children's Services Council, we were able to launch that, and we'll continue to provide that service, and it will evolve as the pandemic evolves, so that will evolve as well.
Thank you, Jessica.
But
I'll give you a chance to talk a little bit more about Nonprofits First Cares in just a minute,
okay.
But I would like to ask Donna Pulda to share her.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. So United Way of Palm Beach County, our mission is to ensure that everyone has access to the basics. And so we do that by funding over 85, it might be even more than that, nonprofit organizations in the community. We work with a lot of you that are on the call here today, but we focus on health, education, and income, financial stability, hunger, homelessness. So like Juanita said, we support a lot of the hunger initiatives in the county, the gleaning program, the pantries. During the pandemic, definitely helped with the school district and the grab and go meals and the weekend backpacks. So to keep people having food on their tables during the pandemic, which probably, as you all know, has been one of the greatest needs. And then we work with our mentor center. So that was another switch to be able to provide, again, kind of like Jeanne said, the virtual mentoring. And so different programs utilize different platforms, but we're definitely able to help their mentors and mentees stay connected And I think one of the things that has come out about that is that some will continue to use that even after the pandemic's over, because then they can connect, at any time, anywhere. So if someone's, works and they're on a work trip, they can still get on the computer, right after working hours and connect with their mentee. So we've definitely, found those challenges, but then some of them are, turning into opportunities that we'll be able to use after the pandemic is over. We did find that we work with a lot of corporate volunteers. So obviously big groups of people out volunteering, and they weren't able to do that anymore. They still wanted to stay connected. We came up with a few of our, we call them learning opportunities. We are definitely in the disaster arena too, as was mentioned before. We are the Emergency Support Function 15 for the county. So that's, we help coordinate all the volunteers and donations during a disaster. So we came up with an evacuation route disaster game where groups have different scenarios on what's happening during a disaster, and they have to make decisions on if they're going to start to prepare or wait and see what happens, or are they going to evacuate or stay in place. So we've been able to provide that as a learning opportunity, as well as poverty simulation. So that's become pretty popular, where folks have to make choices based on the amount of money that they have to spend, and what type of housing they're going to have, if they're going to have transportation, technology. So those have been two really great learning opportunities. And then we did have to shift, because every year we help with Project Thanksgiving. And so that's a campaign to raise dollars and also raise food for the Palm Beach County Food Bank. And so we weren't able to have our large donation drop-offs this year. So we were able to set up through Walmart, Amazon, Target wish lists. And so folks were still able to go online, purchase the food items that they wanted, and they were sent directly to the food bank, and they were still able to distribute those out. And we found the same thing with the annual toy drive that we do in connection with WPTV Channel 5, where we weren't able to have the big event where people drive up to the TV station and drop off their toys and sort and pack. So we did the same thing for the nonprofit agencies, and we're able to set up wish lists for them. So they were still able to get some toy donations for their clients. But I've been with United Way of Palm Beach County for about 21 years, most of that time in the volunteer arena. And I will say probably the biggest challenge with COVID has been our volunteer income tax assistance program. So that's in full swing right now. But most of that has always been a face-to-face, where you have a tax preparer who's an IRS certified volunteer preparing the taxes, and you're sitting across from the taxpayer, asking questions, completing the return. And we have a few locations that have allowed us to do that this year, but most of it is either drop off and wait in your car. And so there's, some communication issues a little bit, people getting used to that type of style. And everything has to be by appointment this year, which hasn't been the case previously. And again, with a lot of the population that we serve, low income seniors, people that speak other languages, it's been really, really difficult for them to make appointments. So it wasn't something that we anticipated getting at least 100 phone calls a day. But we have engaged some of our VITA volunteers who are not willing to do the face-to-face to help us returning those phone calls and emails. So it's been great that we're still able to, utilize them in some fashion for that program. But that has been one of our biggest challenges during COVID this year, is with that volunteer income tax program.
Well, thank you, Donna. Everybody is being very creative, but there's no end to the needs, is there? It will always be with us, and that's why more volunteers are always going to be needed. So Lindy, would you share with us about the Spirit of Giving Network and what your experience has been?
Sure.
Thank you for having me, Rosemary. So the Spirit of Giving is a collaborative nonprofit. We have 78 nonprofit members underneath our umbrella. We in a normal world, we get together monthly and network. We bring in relevant speakers and trainers, and it's a great networking and collaborating platform. So we've been doing that on Zoom, which is okay. It's not as fun as it used to be. I miss seeing them in person. But we also do 4 main signature programs a year for our nonprofit members. So the one we're working on currently is Back to School PBC, and we do this in collaboration with the county. And there's actually 3 different sites. Spirit of Giving is in charge of the South County site. Last year, we were able to distribute over 4,800 backpacks and school supplies to children of our nonprofit members who register these children. And when we started planning this last year, this is a 2-day, all-day encompassing event where the kids come in and they shop for their school supplies. We have school physicals and haircuts, and we collaborate with the Boca Regional Hospital, and they bring in lots of doctors and give free screenings to the kids and to the adults, and the mammogram bands there. We have lunch. I mean, it's an amazing day. When we started planning last year, we thought that's how it was going to happen. And then we realized that it happened. And then we realized it was still going to be here August. So we had to move it to a drive-through event. The day before our event, we got a hurricane watch. So the school canceled our lease. So luckily we could call up all of our nonprofit agencies, and they came and picked up their students' supplies. But so now this year, because COVID's still here, that's going to be here this summer, and not enough people will be vaccinated this summer to have an in-person event with thousands of people, we are going to just start planning it as a drive-through event. But in a normal year, we have about 350 volunteers do this project over 2 days. And last year, when we knew we had to pack the supplies and then distribute them as a drive-through event, what we started doing, how we pivoted our volunteer recruitment is we try to do families, and we try to do businesses, that people who are used to being in their bubble, so that and we had smaller shifts and smaller number of volunteers, and it worked very well. I think that especially the family thing, because parents wanted to be with their kids doing something good for the community, because the community was hurting so badly. And then so our other signature program is the Holiday Gift Drive, which this year we distributed over 6,200 gifts to our nonprofit members' children. And the same thing with the volunteer, though. We had to have smaller groups. We had a warehouse, and we really only wanted about 5 people in a warehouse at a time. And we needed them to be a family unit that were used to being together. So there wasn't so many germs, and we had to screen everybody. But it's been challenging. I keep learning something new every month. One of the cool things, though, Rosemary, I was thinking about the senior citizens and nursing homes. At our holiday gift drive, we usually have like a gift tag. So our nonprofits register their children. We make up a gift catalog where they actually pick out a gift. So little Mary Smith says, she looks at our catalog and she says that she wants a baby doll with a carriage. And so we make a gift tag that says, Little Mary Smith is from Florence Fuller Child Development Center, and she's 6 years old, and she's a female. And then we actually have a QR code on there. It's very high tech. But we have stickers that we need to put on these 5,000 or 6,000 gift tags. And what we did was we made bags of like 100 or 200 each and handed them out to like our Junior League friends, and they did it at home. So we got them all done in a virtual way. So yeah, it's been an interesting year. So.
Oh, great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry, Rosemary.
Okay.
I also wanted to mention, though, one of the things when someone was talking about reaching out, we actually do live scan fingerprinting here. We started doing this for our members who needed to get their volunteers background checks. So we offer that as a service to the community. And I'm always talking to everybody who comes in so that I can get them to volunteer for whoever,
Good for you. Actually, all our speakers have illustrated that maxim that when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Very creative, and I thank you all for sharing that. So you've all had your different ways of either recruiting new volunteers or utilizing the ones you have. one of the concerns of Encore has been that we have an enormous population of people over 50 in our community in Palm Beach County. And we keep reading that almost 50% of our population is over 50. Many are still working, of course, and many live in residential facilities, congregate facilities, a very high percentage, I would imagine, since there are so many of those facilities. And then there are people moving here all the time. I mean, every day people are moving into Palm Beach County, and many of those are older people, retired or planning to retire. And the challenge we have experienced is, how do you reach all of them? How do you connect with them? What can we do better about connecting with them? And on our end, what we have done is to create a page on our website where people such as your organizations can post volunteer opportunities. And then we have links to all the volunteer job boards that we could think of, such as Volunteer Match and so forth. But and I guess maybe this is my little hobby horse that I keep riding, is ours is a very big and complex county, big distances, and people, particularly who are new to the area, and even people who have lived here for years, have a hard time figuring out how to connect with whatever it is they need or are interested in. And I have kept wondering whether we need to have a central place. I know every organization is focused on recruiting volunteers, but is it feasible to have a central volunteer billboard, I guess, or something that gets the message out and come here? Because we can reach people with our newsletters, website, etc. Only so many people. And I imagine you also have the same challenges of reaching people. And I keep wondering if the county government itself, which also has a volunteer job board on our website that needs sprucing up, by the way, is there a way that county government, which impacts almost every household, can communicate better the need in general for volunteers, for people to volunteer? And so I know that Jessica mentioned Nonprofits First Cares as a place where anybody who knows about Nonprofits First can go and see what the volunteer needs are of various organizations. Would you like to say more about that, Jessica? Because you have the same challenge that we all do, is how do people know about your Nonprofits First Cares website?
Yeah, then I mean, and that is a big challenge because it was, it's free to everybody that needs it. It was sponsored to create, and it was software that already existed. So to me, that made sense because we didn't have to spend any money to develop something new, and it's been very, very successful in other parts of the country. So that was really the impetus behind getting that going. But again, it's kind of like volunteer. I think of Volunteer Match as a place to kind of look, that is sort of a national housing of volunteers. And I also want to say, United Way has their volunteer website as well. So we do have local resources. It's just, how do we link people there? And you're right, Rosemary, that depending on where somebody lives or what they're doing, I mean, this is a huge community. If you live in Delray, you barely make it up to Palm Beach Gardens very often. And so you're looking for opportunities that are right there where you live. And so that was sort of the impetus behind this particular piece, was you could connect with an individual organization or list yourself as a volunteer. So it's an organizational place to list opportunities. It's a place to list yourself as a volunteer. And it's also connected to make a straight donation to an organization as well. So that seemed like a very good comprehensive piece. But I frankly don't have the answer on how to get that out there. You know, could you put it on your Florida Power and Light bill? Could you? I mean, I don't even get my bill anymore. So, you know, it used to be you could do things like that, right? Or could we get some billboards out there? Or, you know, how can we create something where people know where to go to do that sort of one-stop shop, if you will?
I've given this some thought, and I certainly welcome anybody else's ideas, but it seems to me there are two main concentrations of people who could be volunteers. One, as I've already mentioned, is in residential facilities, continuing care communities. Many of those people, you know, are not elderly, but do we effectively carry the message to every assisted living and independent facility in Palm Beach County that people are needed? Do we do a good job of that? Is there a way of doing it? The second big concentration of people are in all these over 55 communities. Let's face it, people move here and they retire, they want to play golf, tennis, canasta, whatever. But I've spoken in many of them, and I've considered this for some time, that there isn't an effective communication system to reach the people, thousands of them, in the over 55 communities, and many nonprofits have told me their frustration with that. I don't have an answer. I just, the numbers are in those two places, really. And I guess the third place would be companies. And this is something that maybe each one of you have some experience or ideas about, but I just wonder, and particularly Donna, maybe the United Way, are we reaching out to employers to encourage people to become volunteers even while they're working? And a release time. You know, companies like the visibility of the big group volunteer effort, but individuals are needed for individual tasks. And so Donna, maybe you have some thoughts about that?
You know, the way we reach out to the companies, you know, United Way is a fundraiser. That's, you know, one of our main objectives is to raise funds and then distribute those back out to the community. So a lot of those companies that run campaigns for United Way, while they're doing their campaign, they want to do something to get involved. So they want to see where their dollars are going. So a lot of them do participate in various volunteer projects. It's a team building event for them. So we work with a lot of the nonprofits in the community. And again, I'm going to go to Juanita because CROS, during normal skies and perfect weather and non-pandemic, can take 100 volunteers out into their fields to glean. So we work with a lot of companies like that, and a lot of them do provide, you know, the time off to volunteer. So they, you know, it could be 8 hours a year, or, you know, some are even a little bit more flexible, and it's, you know, more like 4 hours a month or something like that. So a lot of them will do their projects and volunteer together as a group, but we have worked with some companies as well on more of a skill-based type volunteering where they can put their skills to use. We did a project with a company, and they worked, they had a team from like marketing, from resource development, IT. And so they all came together to help a nonprofit work on a specific project. And so that's another way where they're kind of individually, they worked as a small group, but they're utilizing their skills to be able to help nonprofits accomplish some of the things that they need done, you know, helping with revamping their websites, their marketing materials, their, HR manuals, those types of things. So we are definitely seeing an interest in those types of activities.
Well, maybe we could get on the list for that kind of help.
Sure.
Palm Beach County could use it. As I said, everybody is looking for volunteers, but one of the things that Encore thinks about is what is the right volunteer activity for the person. And our experience has been a lot of people don't know how to figure that out for themselves. So we have two Encore board members on the call, Joni Cherbo and Christine Cottagio, who are planning a series of workshops for people interested in figuring out what would be the perfect volunteer opportunity to use their skills and experience, find the right fit. So that people stick with a volunteer opportunity. So Joni and Christine, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Okay, I'm Christine. Hi. One of the things Joni and I were talking about is, and we hear you all saying, amazing things about how you get your volunteers and that type of thing. But do you have anything that's more specific for your organizations? Like say something that you would put like on a job post, because Rosemary could probably vouch for this. When you have someone who goes to an organization and they want to volunteer, quite often the organizations are like, well, we have, this, and this, what do you think you want to do? And so then once people get into it, they realize it may not be a good fit, and it kind of turns them off to the whole prospect of volunteering. So do you have any type of specific way of, criteria that you develop for your individual, say, job postings or opportunity volunteer postings? Is there any way that you could be specific, or are you specific about something like that?
I guess you're talking about job descriptions, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to share for CROS Ministries. One of the things we try to do is in our postings of different volunteer needs is to share more specifics. For example, at our food pantries, we need volunteers who can do intake. And so we're saying, doing intake on a computer. So they know they need to have some skills with using a computer, but also being able to, work packing bags as well. And so then you need to be able to lift 25 pounds. So it's putting some of those details in the actual posting to help begin the process. Then when I do a lot of the screening, and I'm often the first contact for people. I try to talk to them and see what their interests are and what their skills are, and explaining, sort of what our needs are. So then I can match, say, well, how about this? How does this sound to you? And then, but always sharing that if it's not a good match, you get there and it just doesn't seem right, let me know and we'll try another area. Because I think it's so important. People need to feel good, about what they're doing. Because then, as you said, they're just going to stop, and not come back.
Right, right. And what we've seen is that, when someone has specific talents or abilities, they want to be able to utilize their talents as well. Thank you.
And I would say too, none of us, want to steal anybody's volunteers, but really if we find that it isn't a match for us, another organization may have that need and may have that specific skill that they're looking for. And, we all refer volunteers to other organizations. So if, they're coming to you with a specific, I want to do this, and you really don't do that, you can just very politely, well, I'm sorry, we can't help you here, but I know a great organization, and you can just refer those volunteers to someone else. And they are very grateful when we do that.
I'm sure. Thank you.
I'll chime in as well. Oh,
I had
sorry.
mentioned about that we did 4 different programs, and we are very specific about it because our programs and events have very specific volunteer opportunities. So, and we have no issues finding that. But as a collaborative, we get people calling us all the time wanting to volunteer. If they don't fit into our program area, that's exactly what we do. Someone calls and said they want to help with food distribution, and we say, you can go to Boca Help Again, you can go to CROS Ministries. I mean, we're always getting the word out.
Great.
We absolutely put a lot of detail into our job descriptions. So the outward facing posts are pretty detailed. I'm pretty sure most people can figure out what the role will be, but a couple things that we do to enhance the ability for prospective volunteers to determine if this is the right organization for them, the right opportunity is where we have it available. I will post a video along with the position description. Usually it's a volunteer speaking about their role and what they do. So that gives them some insights right up front. And the other thing that we've been doing since COVID, and I forgot to mention before, is we have a virtual open house every month now. And in that virtual open house, it's open to anybody who lives in South Florida. Prospective volunteers can come and learn about the organization, learn about the different lines of service, and we get into a little bit of detail of the highlighted positions. It's not everything, not every position, but the priority needs. So from that open house, they'll kind of already have an idea of, if not the position, maybe the line of service. And then when we screen them on the interview, we get into the more detail. So those are 2 things that help them kind of know where they'll fit in.
Well, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a great idea. And of course, if you find that somebody has entered your virtual door that you don't have a right match for it, you can always refer them to Encore Palm Beach County, because you know we cover a lot of nonprofits, and we would work to try and find a right match for them too. And I know that's something that Joni and Christine are particularly focused on. So we'd appreciate it, of course, if you would share with your communication lines the upcoming workshop next Wednesday, the information about the workshops that they're going to be doing. While we're talking about communication, I was just thinking, and maybe you don't see it the same way, but I think that this has been, we're not done yet, but this has been a very interesting and attractive a group of people talking about the need for volunteers in general in Palm Beach County, and specifically your organizations. As we encounter groups of people, would you have a problem with us sharing this recording with them so there's more exposure? I will probably put it in, it will be on our website. It'll be probably in one of our newsletters. But from time to time, we meet people who are in over 55 community, and I might ask them to share. And also we'll be working with some of the congregate living communities, and people might be very interested in seeing all or part of this particular session. Does anybody have any problem with that? Hearing none. I see David just switched on. And I was thinking particularly about your men's shed group, David.
Well, yes, actually, and that's a good idea. The men's shed group, you know, there's a group of, I mean, this is a local chapter of a much larger, you know, organization that has chapters actually across the country, and really it's a group of mainly men that are looking to you know, socialize, but also looking to see where they can, you know, be helpful in the community. So that Rosemary, I think that's an interesting thought. You know, just the awareness of the volunteer opportunities could, that might be worth some more discussion. And the other thing, when you mentioned the over 55s, I think almost invariably all those communities have an HOA, and the HOA might be kind of a, like a central funnel, because most of them today have a website, and a lot of them publish a newsletter, and that could be a central place to disseminate information to the people that live in that community that might be interested in some volunteer opportunities. So the HOA might be an entry point for that.
And within those communities, there are other groupings, so that actually have their own newsletters. David is part of a men's shed group up in Palm Beach County, and they've been meeting virtually for some time and in person beforehand. And many of them will become available as volunteers in person as things improve, I assume.
Yes, yes. So no, that maybe that's worth some more discussion, Rosemary, about just having this group aware of these organizations, right? And that if that sparks some interest, then obviously then next steps. So I think it's a great idea.
One of the things that we've learned is that older men can become quite isolated socially.
Yes.
After they retire, unless the wife or the girlfriend drags them out to something.
Yes.
And so the men's shed concept is a way of bringing men together, sharing information and experiences. And we've been interested in trying to establish one here in South County, but so far we haven't found a leader for that yet. But we haven't forgotten it. So thank you, David. Of course, you'll be hearing more from me.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. I don't want us to end without people sharing whether they're doing anything with regard to virtual volunteer opportunities, but they're creating more of those. And also to remind you once again, we'll be in touch with every nonprofit on our email lists and on our website to see what opportunities they have to bring tasks to people living in congregate facilities to keep them engaged in community. But did anybody want to say any more about their view of what they can do with regard to virtual volunteer opportunities or on-site tasks?
Not specifically to answer that, Rosemary, but I keep thinking about the need to collaborate, how people find volunteer opportunities. And I'm keep thinking April is National Volunteer Month. I don't know who would spearhead this, but if we could get the county, maybe the media, TV and print to kind of together put out something about volunteerism in Palm Beach County and list like United Way and Nonprofits First, maybe 211, the places for people to go to find out about these opportunities, to really do a concentrated push to get the word out.
Thank you, Jeanne. That is a great idea. Now we just have to find a volunteer to make it happen.
Not in my job description.
Okay,
David,
Johnny,
over your
Christine,
group.
I'm sorry, who's
I was just suggesting David and his group, maybe he can find a group of people to help make that happen. Because that's
Yeah.
I'll definitely mention what we talked about today, because again, we meet regularly. In fact, later today.
okay.
So I will mention what we talked about. And Rosemary, I'm glad you thought of that. I think it's a good idea to see where that might lead.
Okay, well, I just thought of it while we were talking, and that is sharing and communication stimulates ideas.
Absolutely.
Johnny?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that there seem to be so many different opportunities out there and ways of promoting. One of the weaknesses that I think we're trying to deal with that you have mentioned was there are so many people who really don't know what they want to do or if they even want to volunteer. And I think that is the flip side of the coin of finding something as well. And I think that's one of the things that Christine and I are going to focus on in the workshop is trying to find people who say, well, this might be interesting. I've never thought about really doing it before, besides maybe writing a check, you know, or doing something at my grandchild's school or my church or temple. So that's the flip side of all this. The opportunities are there up the gazoo in some ways. But for people who don't even really haven't done this before and really don't know where to go or how to start, that's part of what we're trying to pick up on in our workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Well, a very interesting hour has passed. Before we close, is there anybody who would like to say or share anything that they haven't had a chance to do? Okay. Hearing
Thank you
none.
very much, Rosemary. We appreciate the opportunity to share. I think it's been wonderful. And I think also a great idea to, recording this and then being able to share in different places. So that is, awesome. And to Joni's comment, I did want to say, I think there are two things, people determining or seeing what are their passions, what are they passionate about, and then what do they like to do? Because some may love, the idea of reading to a child, but others, may, enjoy helping to feed people, so it's those two things. I think it's important for people to identify, and also sometimes too, get over the inhibition that they actually have something to share, that they actually could help someone.
Yes.
One of the other little challenges is from time to time, I know I meet people who are highly skilled. I mean, they've had high executive positions, but they don't really know where that can be used. They want to do something that utilizes their skills, but do our nonprofits have a need for what they have to offer? And that sometimes is a challenge. Somebody may be interested in visiting the sick or holding a baby or mentoring or tutoring or something. But there are a lot of people moving here who are highly educated, highly skilled, have had prominent positions, and they really don't know how to make what they have had as experience and knowledge transferable into what a nonprofit might be. And so I see that as another challenge. Well, there's no lack of challenges, are there? But we keep working away on it. And personally, I'm a big believer and proponent of volunteer service, not only to meet the needs of the community, but because it's good for people. It's good for them psychologically, and it's good for their health as they age to be engaged in community and sharing. So I think that wraps up our session today. I appreciate everybody taking the time. I hope that you will share the information on our volunteer opportunity series of workshops next week with Joni and Christine. You will receive a copy of the recording, and I hope you'll share that along with our newsletter or anything else with your contact lists. And that, I think, we're all in the same boat together, which is to help volunteerism grow in Palm Beach County. So thank you once again for being with us.